Hey, what's going on, good people? Welcome to Russ Can Fly. Yes, it can really be tough when bad things happen.
Oh my goodness, Russ can fly.
Okay, so yeah, it has been a really tough time in the aviation community, and we had some serious issues happen, some weeks back. And I gotta tell you, yes, it is tough when things happen in the aviation community, and it does make you think about what this thing called flying an airplane and being involved in aviation, especially general aviation, where we're flying small planes with single engines. It does make you think, and it's very sobering. A very sobering reality when you see things happen, especially in any type of space, be it private, military, it doesn't matter. It does have an impact. Now, it's interesting. I was supposed to do a training flight today, and the wind has been really crazy. And here's the other issue I'm contending with. Now, you see this ice along here? It is like solid. And so one of the things that's happening is I gotta get a chipper. Somebody already suggested that I do that because I can't get the door to come past here. And as you can see, the bottom of the hangar door is kind of stuck. It needs to be over here. So, damn, that's a problem. Couldn't get all the hangar doors open. So this is all I got. I mean, I got one hangar door open and that's it. These other two I can't get open because they basically accordion into the other door over here. And without it having enough room, these doors won't, slide behind each other. So, yep, the doors would have been a problem and I would have been upset. That issue notwithstanding, I couldn't fly anyway just because my CFI and I have decided that it didn't make any sense to go up there and get bumped around, especially since I am just, still very green at this whole instrument flying thing. So because of that, we just decided to scrub the flight. But I thought I would come out here because I wanted to come check on the airplane. And the other thing I do anytime something like that happens, a lot of times, what I will do is just come out, and sometimes I'll just sit in the cockpit of the airplane and just visualize myself going through all of my procedures over and over again and reminding myself that, listen, if there is an emergency, I am going to figure it out and I'm going to get myself safely on the ground. Now, many of you may say, well, wait a minute, Russ, don't you think those other pilots, thought about their procedures and getting themselves down safe? Yes, but I have to put myself in a mindset that I will win. There is no option because the only other option is defeat. And if you go up in an airplane and you have a defeatist attitude, you've already lost. And in fact, I would submit, and maybe this is sounding a little harsh, but if you have that kind of mentality, I don't think you belong into the cockpit of an airplane. And the reason why it is yes, the stakes are high. I mean, this is a matter of life and death. It really is. And the thing about it is, it's not just the person who's flying the airplane, it's the people who are on the ground as well. One of the things that you may have noticed in the Philadelphia accident, and I send my condolences to all the families who were impacted by that. I also send my condolences to all the families who are impacted by, the DC mishap. My heart goes out to all of them. Just devastating. But that's the thing that, makes this part of the journey so kind of beautifully difficult and interesting, because you have to know that this thing is all about possibilities, and one of the possibilities is the final conclusion. And so it is imperative for everyone in the aviation community to do everything they can to be as safe and as a proficient pilot as possible, to try to at least reduce the risks of something like that happening. Now look, there's some things that are just always going to be out of your control. I know pilots who have done everything perfectly and they've still ended up in a situation where, you know, the airplane malfunction was just too far, or there was just too many things that aligned that just lined up against them, and you know, it ended up in a really tragic result. But one of the things that is clear to me is anytime like something like this is on the record, where you have kind of multiple very sad, tragic things, that is the time when everybody in the aviation community, pilots, ATC, people who do stuff on the ground, all of that kind of stuff, have to go back, take a deep breath, and then find themselves in the things that they can control, which is making sure that you are proficient, making sure that the aircraft has all of its maintenance, all of the airworthiness directives are taken care of, and finally, that the pilot is in a good physical and mental state. Anything otherwise is unacceptable. And again, that's not to say that, you know, all of those things can be taken care of and there still not be issues, but that's just a way to minimize risk. And so that's why I come out here. I come out here sometimes and I just look at the airplane. I go through my procedures. One of the things that I'm beginning to do is really think about maximizing cockpit management. What do I mean by that? One of the things that happens, and I'm sure you've seen me do this before, is when I'm flying, there's different stages of flight. So say I take off and I'm now in my climb out. I want to pull out my checklist while I'm climbing out to make sure I take care of my checklist items, to make sure all of the procedures are done correctly. That act of moving that checklist is part of cockpit management, because the question is, once I'm done with the checklist, where do I put it? Now, a lot of you have seen that when I first got Charlie, I was putting it on the dashboard. Now, the cameras were picking it up. I didn't see as much of the glare, but you know, there is a glare if the sun hits it at a certain angle, and I can see in the windscreen the checklist reflected off of the top of the dash. So that's not a good place to put the checklist. In other aircraft that I've flown, except for Charlie, there was like a little slot. Well, this airplane doesn't have that. So in addition to, okay, put the checklist here, making sure that my headphone wires don't intersect or interfere with my ADS-B because it's not battery operated, it has to be plugged in, making sure that there's nothing around, you know, my feet so my rudder pedals aren't interfered with, making sure that there's nothing in between the seats because that's where my flap arm control is, all that kind of stuff. That's all part of cockpit management. And so what I'm learning is, okay, how can I be more efficient? How can I do things differently? I'm always going to have access to my paper checklist, and it's not paper, I mean it's laminated in plastic, but you get what I'm saying. But the bottom line is, one of the things I'm realizing is I do have my iPad, and my iPad does have a checklist on it. And so since it's right there, it's efficient. I don't have to reach for anything, it's right there. So I'm going to begin to utilize the checklist there, so then that way I'm not reaching for this thing, because there's been times where I've put the checklist down and it's gone underneath the seat and I'm reaching underneath the seat and all that kind of stuff, and it's not horribly unsafe, but it's not the best answer. And here you want to choose the best answer. So that's one of the things that I'm really going to start doubling down on, is very good, concise and precise cockpit management. So I'm not reaching for things. The other thing that's been interesting is just looking at, you know, when I get different frequencies. You've seen a couple of flights where, you know, I'm dialing the frequencies right in the right in my comms rather than writing them down and stuff. And that's been hard because I'm used to hearing it, writing it down, repeating it back, then putting it in. Another 30 seconds, probably no big deal, but it's inefficient. And again, I've got a knee board. That knee board can move, it can shift, it could come off, it could get stuck down in the flap arm, all of that kind of stuff. So those are all the things that go into it, as opposed to just hearing the frequency while I hear it, just putting it in the comms, saying the thing, reading back, and even if I make a mistake, at least it's there. And so I don't have to worry about that. And again, I am so used to having a knee board, and I always want to have one, but my iPad also has a scratch pad. So all of those little things that just try to think about how to be the most efficient and proficient in that cockpit, and cockpit management is just one of those aspects that I'm really trying to dial in to be as safe as possible. So that's just one of the things that, I'm thinking about. But I also think about, this is a very dangerous undertaking, but it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And for me, everything in life carries some sort of risk. So, a lot of my family, and man, I love my family so much. When those things had happened some weeks ago, especially the one in Philadelphia, family, friends, co-workers reached out to me, and it was just such a beautiful thing, because I know a lot of times in life, everybody's busy, and sometimes you may feel a little isolated and stuff. And for somebody who's like very social, for me, it's so important for me to engage with people. I get my energy from being engaged with people. And you might think, well, you're always out there talking to yourself, and you're always in your airplane flying by yourself. So what's up with you? Aren't you an introvert? Absolutely not. I'm a flaming extrovert. I love to swim in a sea of humanity. I love, conversating and getting in crowds. Love small talk. I love just humanity, and humans just interest me. I think humans are the most interesting thing ever invented. So I like to spend time with them and interface with them and meet them and all that kind of stuff. So, but every now and then I will say that this undertaking can be a little isolating because there's not many people who do what I do, in my friend group, or in my family. I'm the only one that's in aviation, and how many people do aviation YouTube videos? I'm just saying. So, this is a little bit isolating. So it was so wonderful to have my cousins calling me from Pittsburgh and reaching out from Virginia and Florida, all across the country, and then friends just, sending me text messages, and a lot of my brothers in my Bible study group reaching out, and a lot of my brothers that I ride motorcycles with, were calling me, and checking in on me. It just felt so, so good. So for all of you who did that, I really appreciate it. I really do. It was just such an amazing thing. And that's the thing that's made it amazing. Every time I think about the ways in which aviation and this aviation journey enriches my life, there's always some new aspect. And it's not that I haven't had people show me love before, but man, the amount of love that I was shown was just gargantuan. And so, this vocation, this journey carries some profound risks. And I'm aware of them. And sometimes, reality comes home and you see something that's just so devastating. But, I gotta tell you, this journey, this life, this undertaking, this passion is just such an amazing thing. It's just so life affirming that, yes, there can be an ultimate end based on these risk factors, but the joy that you get in the undertaking is well worth the risk. It just is. But there are times where things happen that are just so beyond devastating that, you just think, wait, time out. should I really be doing this? The answer always comes back to a resounding yes. And yet there is this time where there's this small hesitancy. There's part of the brain that is risk adverse, that is, into, making sure that the self is protected from harm and danger, and it runs to recoil from this risky undertaking. But that's when, that's a voice that just needs to be silenced, because this is worth the risk. So as I come out here and I look at, Charlie, and I look at this ice that I got to figure out how to chop up and, get some fuel, and it's almost time for another oil change, believe it or not. And all the things that go into this undertaking. Yeah, sometimes it is one of those things where you think to yourself, man, this is crazy. And I know sometimes you folks think, dude, shut up, get in the airplane, take us somewhere. That's the fun part. That's why we watch. But, like I've always told you, every aspect of this journey I want to share. And it would be, I don't think it would be real if I didn't take a pause and say to you, yeah, when I see this stuff happening out in the aviation community, these tragedies, it does give me pause. It does make me think twice about, whether these risks are worth it. And there are times where it just plain old, flat out scares the mess out of me. I mean, because face it, who wants to do something that can kill you, right? But, have you driven in a car lately? That can kill you. Have you eaten in a restaurant? That can kill you. Have you walked across the street in any metropolitan area anywhere in the United States where these people are driving like maniacs and have their phones in their hands, or they're thinking about 10 million things, or they've got 5 kids in the back fighting and they're reaching back there as they're driving? That can kill you. So so there's a lot of things that can, that can kill you. And I would submit that, I feel just as safe, if not more, flying than I do driving, just because there's just the people up there, they have a certain type of training. There's a certain expectation of excellence and procedural focus that you don't see when people are driving. People have just, the idea of following rules and knowing what, etiquette is and all that kind of stuff has gone by the wayside years ago. People are just bananas. But yeah, there are times where, like I said recently, where, I would see something like that, and that first, entrance into the cockpit is like, do I really want to do this? And I think to myself, wait a minute, remember, the Lord has been good to you. He's the one that put this before you. And it is still true today as it was yesterday, and it will be tomorrow. He will never leave us nor forsake us. So that's the faith that I bring into this. And based on that, there's just such an abundant joy that flows from all of this that I just can't walk away. It just won't leave me alone. So that's it. So I know these talking head videos aren't as, exciting as the flying videos. And I agree. There's times where I'll download this footage and I hear myself yakking, and I'm just like, dude, I'm telling my own self to shut up. But these are the things that, are part of the journey. These are the spiritual, psychological, and social impacts that does affect, how I approach, this whole thing called being a pilot, and being an airplane owner, and being part of an aviation community, and being part of a community where people have been hurt or been killed, and coming to terms with what does that mean, because I am not immune to that. That could happen to me. So that's it, good people. I just wanted to stop by and tell you that, these real world events do have an impact. And I hear the rhetoric and all that kind of stuff, and it is impactful, and sometimes it's saddening. It really is. But I just want to tell you, listen, I thank you for supporting me and reaching out and making comments and calling me. I'm good. And in fact, this is something that makes me fantastic, is this and Charlie and flying and making these videos and talking to all of you, because one of these days the inevitable is going to happen. I mean, that is one thing that is absolutely guaranteed. I think the saying is nobody gets out of life alive or something like that, but it's true. You know, things do happen, and you know, eventually there will be a date at the end of the dash, you know, that already has the first date. You know, there will be a last date. And one of the things that I will say, and I can already say, regardless of when that day comes, that this undertaking, along with so many of the blessings the Lord has thrown at me, has loomed large on the living that I have done. It has allowed me to live very well. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, yes, I have this YouTube channel and I get to engage the aviation community, but I also go to places and I get to meet people, talk to people, engage with them. And that is such an amazing thing to be able to do. So that's it. Enough yakking. I'm going to try to see if I can't chop this up. That little plastic shovel back there isn't gonna get it, so I need something hardcore. So gonna do some work and try to chip this away. But anyway, again, people, thank you so much. Each of you have watched these videos, versus if this is your first one. And if this is your first one, this is your first time here, please subscribe to the channel. But for so many of you who have been subscribers and been around for a while, I so thank you, because you are part of this rich tapestry that has made my life just so amazing and beautiful. All right, with that, I'm out. Russ Kid, Russ can fly. I'll see ya. Peace.